All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for tonight's panel discussion. My name is Samantha Maines, and I am the Artist and Communications Coordinator with the Eastside Art Society, and I am pleased to be moderating our Talking Art panel, Creating in Community. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are holding this event from the unceded, ancestral, and traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I am grateful to be hosting this talk on these lands, and as a settler and a guest, for so much of my learning, my art practice, and my work to be within this community of the east side of Vancouver. For those of you that are new, Talking Art is a three-part thematic artist talk series that the Eastside Art Society presents in advance of the annual Eastside Culture Crawl presented by the Audain Foundation. This year, the crawl is happening from November 20th to 23rd. We invite you to visit the artists at their studios to be sure to check out their work at culturecrawl.ca/artists. You can find all the information about the crawl and our other programming on our website at culturecrawl.ca. For the format of today's discussion, we will engage in a Q&A with the artists. I kindly ask that the audience is to please type any questions for the artists into the chat for our question period at the end of the discussion. Participating in tonight's talk, I am pleased to introduce the artists. We have Jay Sally Carrington and Gina Dalioso. You can correct me, Gina, I'm sorry.
Delosio.
Delosio. Oh, it didn't stick, I'm sorry. All right. Jay is a figurative ceramic sculptor creating work about human identities, behavior, and emotions using anthropomorphic creatures. Reflecting on their queer and transgender identity, Jay creates sculptures which uplift two-spirit LGBTQIA+ communities, as well as challenge and analyze the dominant heteronormative and cisgendered society. They question the role that gender, sexuality, and desire have in forming an individual's character and placement within their culture. Jay's sculptures speak to a feeling of otherness, not through visible physical traits, but through the hidden aspects of identity. These identities exist within. They are either shared or kept a secret. The zoomorphic qualities of their sculptures shed light on those human characteristics hidden from the naked eye. As each animal comes with its own unique qualities, as well as the myths and stories associated with them, when anthropomorphized, their addition to the human form creates a deeper understanding of that individual's persona and experiences. Vancouver-based artist Gina's practice is focused on hyperreal mold making and found objects. She explores the human relationship to the material world through the replication of flesh with silicone in combination with found objects. Her work is a reflection of the contemporary moment, employing satire and irony to both poke fun and critically contemplate our world. Lately, Gina's work has been focused on the relationships between material culture, technology, social media, and their effects on identity. So I find it really interesting that both of your art practices explore representations of the human form and human identities and relationships. So starting first with Gina and then with Jay, can you both introduce what you create in your practice, your chosen materials, and how that informs the subjects of the human form, identities, and relationships?
Yeah. Okay, happy to start. Should we pull up the first slide?
Mm-hmm. I will do that now. One sec, sorry, I'm just, there it is. Here we go. Thanks, Gina.
So my practice, as mentioned in my artist statement, is a lot about flesh and form, always inspired by the body in one way or another. Lately, I've been doing a lot of more geared towards surrealism. but bringing in the elements of hyperrealistic sculpture. Yeah, I sort of started with just like realism and replication. So this is what you'll see in this slide, where I just kind of replicated an actual human form. You can keep going with the slides as I talk. This is a more recent exhibition. This was my solo show last year at the Forest City Gallery in Ontario. And this was sort of the beginnings of manipulating the human body. The idea for this one was about compression and the ways in which like our external factors will affect our bodies. And so I wanted to play with this idea of like distortion and compression. So these bags actually get vacuum formed, and I casted these people to sort of look, or they casted them quite hollow so that they would even emphasize the compression aspects. So starting to play with how can I visually represent emotions and sensations within the body in like a physical way and how it manifests. Yeah, you can keep going. Yeah, again, just more of the same. This was, I can talk more about it later, a collaboration I did with another artist, Shay Salehi. You can just keep rolling through the slides as I talk. Yeah, basically, lately I'm gearing more towards the abstract, but still using flesh. Just really interested in the ways in which our bodies contort and conform to societal norms. I've been exploring a lot of themes of technology and how it influences the body, or like gender norms. Keep going with the slides. This piece is a newer piece as well. A good example of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about like manipulating the form. This one was like mainly inspired by the Fibonacci sequence and the idea of beauty that we have currently, and like this feeling of needing to fit within a certain parameter to be beautiful, and like the distortions that are leading from that. A lot of yeah, I don't know, like surgeries becoming trends and like needing to alter our bodies in ways. And this was sort of just like a way of representing what it is to be a perfect shape, and kind of like the distortion that comes with that, and like the feeling of like unease, and yeah, sort of the uncanny valley of it all. And this is just like a collection of images. Yeah, this is kind of what my studio looks like right now. A lot of body parts everywhere. Kind of a horror scene, but it's cool. Yeah, and so a lot of the time it is very narrative focused, like my personal narrative. And so I do use a lot of like Caucasian skin tones, because it's a lot about me and my story. But sometimes I do incorporate like more of a general broader narrative, and I use other models to create the work um, of different genders, ethnicities, body types, everything like that. So yeah, it's a little mix of things. Yeah, you can just keep going, flipping through the images.
That one's our last one.
But yeah.
All right, I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen. And I'm just gonna pop over and set up your slides, Jay. Okay, and would you like me to go to them now?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks.
There we go.
Excellent. So yeah, I'm a figurative ceramic sculptor. I absolutely love clay because you can turn it into like anything. You can replicate almost any texture, and I just love its ability to, you know, be almost anything. And so I've been using ceramics and my art practice as sort of journal entries for a long time to eventually figure out my queer and trans identities. I've been making artwork about gender and sexuality for far longer than I knew I was queer and trans. And so I feel like it was just kind of working over these topics. I was sculpting other people when I was, I learning about trans identities and non-binary, so sculpting other people, and then talking to the models whenever I did, and kind of understanding that, like, oh, I relate to this a lot, and it helped me figure these things out. So this piece I made in grad school, and it was around the time I'd figured out I was trans, and had begin to understood that I felt significantly more masculine inside than I did on the outside, based on my gendered body. And I, because in my work I use animals as like symbols and metaphors. And so for us, an animal such as a deer, generally the males have antlers and the females don't. So using an antler as a symbol for the masculinity, trying to figure out how to bring it to the surface. And so this one's called emanation. And so it's like the masculinity, like emitting from within. And so yeah, just trying to using sculpture to work through all these things I was kind of thinking about. And we can go to the next slide. This is later in grad school when I learned that gender affirming surgery would be available to me, which was a big reason I kind of understood I was trans, is because I'd realized I'd wanted top surgery since I was a kid, but I never knew that was even an option. But I dreamed about not having breasts, and so this piece is called alignment. So I'm learning that I could align my body with how I felt, and I use a lot of goats in my work. I use horned animals as the horns being symbols for power, and so when I was presenting as a woman, the world saw me as a woman. I'd always be told, like, don't go out at night, be afraid of the world, because like the world's going to get you. Like the world saw me as a prey animal. So I thought, okay, if the world is going to see me as a prey animal, I'm going to be the one with the biggest, scariest horns. And so I started depicting myself as goats. And so the horns just got bigger and bigger as they went. And I used ibex a lot. We can go to the next slide. And so this one is a lot more recent. I did a clay symposium in China. I don't know if they did a ton of research on me before they invited me, because you're not really allowed to talk about gender and sexuality in the way that I was experiencing it. And that's what my work is about. So anyways, this piece I got to bring back, but it's my most recent one, where I also got to play around with porcelain. And so it was a really interesting experience being a figurative sculptor and being in where my work is about talking about the stuff, and I couldn't talk about it, but anyways, we can go to the next slide. And then how my work relates to community. Once I figured out my trans identity, I wanted to reach out to more trans people and connect with others, and I just learned about more people's experiences. And so I'll talk about my Trans Passions project a bit later, but this is kind of delving into that a little bit, where I was sculpting other trans people as their passions, and I got to hear all about their journeys. And so connecting with others was a really big part of helping me understand my identity, and just what does trans mean in this world today. Yeah, go next slide.
That's the end.
Perfect.
And before we continue with some of our questions, I just want to take a little bit of a moment to talk about the materials of both your work before we kind of transition out of that. I clay is often referred as like the clay body. So I appreciate that it has this like inherent within its naming, like inherent form for to be translated into, say, like the human form. But I don't know much about the materials that you work with, Gina. And I like, as someone that comes from a practice that has engaged with clay, like I can imagine the way that it feels, the smoothness, the softness, the way you can press into it. Sometimes it has a memory, and how much that there is like a little bit of an interplay between like actual, flesh and body and skin, and that relationship, that mirroring. I don't know much about is latex. I don't know what it feels like. I don't know if it's liquid, if it's solid. Can you talk a little bit about that? I'd like to,
Sure.
just
Yeah.
think about like what are the commonalities in both these things that you're working with?
Yeah, so silicone, so it's not latex, it's actually silicone. They're
Sorry.
two different materials. No, no problem. latex is like based off of like a rubber, like think of like actually the rubber tree plants that you have in your home. That's what they make latex out of. Much less toxic, but degrades over time. Silicone is much more toxic. There's like tin and platinum based silicones. There's a ton of them. I use a lot of skin safe silicone, and I do a lot of what's called life casting. That's what I base most of my sculptures on. So I often do start with a base. Life casting involves covering someone in silicone, and then after that, covering them in plaster bandage, basically getting a negative of someone's actual body. And then that's kind of when I will pour either like sometimes I'll pour silicone directly into that, fast and dirty. But if I want to change it and alter it and sculpt it, which is what I'm doing a lot more lately, I will cast an oil-based clay. So similar to how Jay is working, I'm just working, he's most likely working in water-based clay. What I'm doing is a oil-based clay, so it's softened with heat, similar to how you would use a wax. Think of a wax. So softened with heat, pour it in essentially as like a liquid, and then solidifies as it cools, and then sculpting that using different sculpting tools and techniques. And rather than using water to soften it, you need to use solvents, so it's a lot more toxic. And yeah, and then from there doing a mold making process where I will mold that sculpt, cast that into silicone, and then paint and do all the finishing that comes with that. So it's definitely a really involved process. I think both of our processes like are very intense in terms of like the steps you need to take to accomplish like a finalized piece. And in terms of like casting and molding, it's really important to have like a specific vision for what you want your final piece to look like. So I kind of often talk about how a lot of artists like sculpt with intuition, and I don't at all. Like there's just really no room for intuition. There's like only room for like rigidity and like clear planning. And like there's not often like happy accidents in my work. It's mostly just like yeah, just me like coming up with an idea and following that through to the end. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and can I clarify, like when you're working with the clay, do you have a little bit of that flexibility, but then you have to maybe like pinpoint something to a degree, and that's when you're doing the molding? Am I following?
Yeah, so yeah, so I mean there is the flexibility in the clay for sure. I can make whatever I want to make. Um, it gets more complex the more complex of a shape that you do, like the more complex the mold has to be. It's just such like like an intense and specific process that yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of like sculpting in clay, I have as much freedom as I want. But I think I always just go into it with like a pretty clear vision of what I want the piece to look like, is what I mean.
And Jay, kind of responding to Gina and her method of working, do you feel like that aligns with your process, or do you feel like you navigate, happy accidents, I guess was that the word that came up?
Yeah, I think happy accidents can happen a lot more easily with the clay that I'm using with, because I'm not starting with molds of the human form and then kind of changing them, is how I understood Gina's process. I'm sort of building it from a blob of clay up to nothing, up to something, and so there's a lot more wiggle room because there's no, I think like I'm not gonna say guidelines, but I'm not starting with any pre-existing shapes. And so I'd say I do like some planning for some pieces, but I'd say there's a lot of happy accidents. Lots of not happy accidents, but that's just how it goes.
Thank you for sharing a little bit more about your method for working and how you produce your works.
Yeah. I think it's for me it's a little complicated until people see it. It's hard to really visualize. But I hope it made sense.
Yeah, thank you for explaining. So I'm going to dive into our next set of questions. And we're going to talk with Jay. Um, and so, sorry, I think things got a little bit jumbled around, so this might diverge a little bit. Jay, you talked a lot about residencies, and that being a big part of your practice. And just for folks that are not aware, can you share what an artist residency is and how they typically work? And what are the benefits of this type of opportunity for artists?
Yeah, I got into residencies right when I finished undergrad, and they're essentially there's so many different kinds of them, but more or less it's you have a certain amount of time in some sort of a studio in another location. You can do residencies at home, but I find them extra useful if they're somewhere else. And then with that, you get access to whatever that studio offers. You get to create in a new place, meet the people there, create a body of work. Sort of, you don't have the distractions of home is kind of what I get out of it. And then with that, sometimes you pay to be there, sometimes they pay you to be there. And also, once you have residencies, then you can apply for grants at the end of a residency. Often you'll be offered like an exhibition to showcase what you made, or maybe to pay for the residency you can teach a workshop or sell work. And so it's a great way of connecting with people and making a new body of work with the influences and inspirations from wherever you are. And so I'd like to say there's a range from a lone cabin in a woods for a few weeks to a month, which I've done, or at a full clay center full of 6 other artists in residence. A bunch of classes happen there. There's a gallery across the street and around a ton of people. And so they range wildly. And I've done a whole bunch of them and I love them. And yeah, it's a lot of self-directed learning and I thrived in that kind of context.
In your artist bio, I believe there's a substantial list
They've
of
about one a year for a long time.
I'm going to just read off a couple of the locations and just to explore. So you've done some residencies in BC, and I'm probably going to say this wrong. Tula Art Shed
Peninsula, yeah.
and Lormina Salter Fellowship at Baltimore Clayworks in Baltimore, Maryland. Salt Spring Island, BC. You've done one in Toln, Denmark.
Yeah, I don't know how to say the name of that one, but it was in Denmark.
You've done a residency in Rome, Italy. Watershed Center for the Ceramic Arts in Newcastle, Maine. The Nonsense Art Center in Parsboro, Nova Scotia. Watershed Center for the Ceramic Arts in Maine. And Torpedo Factory Art Center in Alexandria, Virginia, which that sounds really cool. You've got a couple slides here, and I don't know if you want to go through some of them and talk about those residencies. Can you share more about the residencies that were prominent experiences for you and what they offered for you in that time of your art practice and in that time of your life?
Yeah, I got a few slides from some residencies and some just the things I learned that were so specific to those residencies. So this one is at Tula. This happened in February of this year, and it was I got a grant from Baltimore Clayworks to do this 2-month residency, and had my specific body of work, and I was just alone in this house more or less. And my partner, and my mom came to visit at different points, but that's the ocean outside the window. It was absolutely amazing. I had this whole house to myself, and just having that time to not have the distractions of home. And I just focused and I made so much work. And then I exhibited it immediately after I got home. So we can go to the next slide. And so one of my favorite things that I learned at residencies is I've mentioned meeting people. So at this residency I did on Salt Spring Island, that was kind of just like I'm alone in a studio for, I think I did for 3 months, 2 or 3 months. It was too long to be alone in a studio because I was also living alone. It was a little isolating. But I did meet this absolutely amazing artist, Judy Whedon. She lives on the island and she taught me how to do sawdust firing. And so that was in 2018 or 2019. And that just opened up my eyes to atmospheric firings. And it was really just, she came to my artist talk and said, she has this property on the island. If I want to bring some pieces, she'll show me how to fire her kiln. And I didn't even know that was a thing you could do. This is essentially just a trash can, a metal trash can full of sawdust, and my pieces in the middle. We can go to the next slide to show you what the pieces look like after. But getting those sorts of effects, that wasn't because I wasn't a big fan of electric firing. I don't like using glazes because it covers over a lot of the textures and details of the clay, but I couldn't find something that I was satisfied enough with. And then I got into atmospheric firings, and that was really just someone who came to my artist talk during a residency. And I like to tell people every artist residency you do will lead to some other kind of opportunity. And so either it's like someone you meet in passing who says, oh, you should apply to this other residency, or someone who comes to your talk and teaches you something, and then that just like skyrockets you in a different direction. And so being in those artistic settings where you're just meeting people who are interested in similar things just brings together such inspiration, creativity, and yeah, like after that, that the horns for this piece were wood fired with my friend Tony Wilson. I don't know if you guys know him, but he helped me fire these kilns. This is after I'd sort of the sawdust firing opened my eyes. Yeah, I kind of opened my eyes to atmospheric firings, and then I sort of kept going from there and was like wood kilns, soda kilns. We can go to the next slide. And so, on a different side of residencies, that one was like I'm alone in the woods meeting just like whoever came to my artist talk. This was last year. I got a grant from Canada Council for the Arts. So another benefit of residencies is you can get funded to do the whole thing. Always got to apply. If you don't apply, you never get anything. But lots of rejections. But eventually, I did get this grant, and it funded a year of me being in Baltimore to create my Trans Passion series. And Baltimore Clerics is amazing. I was one of 6 artists in residence on the second floor, and then on the bottom floor, we all taught classes. And so I got to connect with a ton of people from the community. You can see it's a big enough space where I can work on many things at the same time. And they had a wood and soda kiln in the backyard. And so I wood fired or soda fired 3 of those 4 pieces in that figure. And that big one in the front there was also wood fired, which is a really expensive and hard thing to do. But if it's in the backyard of your studio and you have funding to do it, then it's a way you can get access to something like that. And so now I'm hooked on wood firing and soda firing, which are hard kilns to come by, but I love them. So now I drive my work to Bellingham to fire it because I just found a kiln out there. But yeah, we can go to the next slide. I'm not totally sure what. Oh yeah, so this is the series I made while I was at that residency. And so having a whole year to create this work was mind-boggling. Like I didn't it really showed me what I could do with my work, and it allowed me to push myself in a whole bunch of ways. Um, I just tried a lot more things because I had such a big studio and access to such incredible facilities and other artists around me who could help. And, I can see other artists' influences in my work because we're all neighbors in one studio. So yeah, a range of experiences with residencies, and yeah, I highly recommend them to anyone. They're my favorite way to learn. And then also school is great, but I think residencies was really where most of my learning came from.
Thank you, Jay, for sharing. And I'm just going to, sorry, I'm just going to get reoriented here. And Jay, so your bio also states that you have a passion for using your artwork to bring people together, to strengthen community through artistic fundraisers, collaborative exhibitions, and building interactive projects. Can you expand on this and share more about your connection between your art practice and your community building and what it means to you?
Yeah, definitely. We could go to the first slide and I could start talking about it. So having that residency in Baltimore and having I built this whole series based on trans people's passions. And so all the sculptures are based on the experiences of someone else. And I, interviewed everyone, and so as I'm building it, I was realizing like if I sell this artwork or if I have an exhibition, it's not just about me. It has so many other people who have been involved in the creation of this whole series. And so like this most last minute scramble before the Baltimore exhibition is the photo on the right. And I just sent a bunch of text messages to everyone that I'd met in my year in Baltimore and said, I'm doing a last minute thing. If people want to help me make little ceramic pins, just like small ceramic objects, we'll turn them into pins, and then they'll be for sale at the exhibition by donation. 100% of the proceeds will go to Baltimore Safe Haven. So I just found, because it was trans passion, so I found an organization that benefited trans people. And I think we raised like, a portion of the sales of the sculptures also went to Baltimore Safe Haven, as they're all sculptures that, yeah, it wasn't just me who made them. So I wanted to make sure that any money I made off of them also went back to the trans community in some way. And so we raised over $1,000 American from the Baltimore exhibition. And then the photos on the left were in Vancouver. I did this exhibition again at James Black Gallery, and we raised about somewhere between $300 and $400 for Urban Native Youth Association. And so having that residency opportunity in Baltimore kind of showed me like that I can use my platform to help other people. And so we can go to the next slide. I think there's maybe just a photo of some of the pins. Yeah, so those are some of the pins, and so they're just cute. And so when we're building these things, like some of the people, I have family, friends, my partner, and some strangers. I didn't know some of the people there, and we just hung out and made art, and it was really fun. So it was super cute. We can go to the next slide. And so as I'm connecting with the community, I did the Urban Native Youth Association, was the recipient of the last fundraiser. I started connecting with them and wanting to give back to the community more. So I have my own studio now. This is where I'm working out of. And so I know ceramic classes are quite expensive. They can be, because it's an expensive art form. And so I wanted to make sure that the classes were available to people who might not have access to expensive classes otherwise. And so now that I have my own space to offer, I want to do, like, when I get myself a bit more organized, somewhat regular free classes for communities who are helping, or just like, yeah, a great spaces. And so this is some people from Urban Native Youth Association. They came to my studio and did a little free workshop, and it was really fun to just hang out and make art. And most of them have never worked with clay before, and it was just a really enjoyable way to connect with my local community and meet people and offer classes. We can go to the next one. And so another way of connecting with the community. So I'm organizing, this is just a screenshot of the call for exhibitions because it's not up yet, but I'm curating an exhibition at some gallery in March called Kinship. And it's an exhibition of trans ceramic artists to happen at the same time as the Canadian Symposium for Ceramic Art. And so I'm presenting at that symposium, and so I thought I wanted to use that opportunity to bring other ceramic artists in and be able to share just an emerging ceramic artists and other artists in the Vancouver area to get to be part of that symposium. And so it was such a quick turnaround. I emailed Mark at some gallery and it's like, can we put this together? The deadline to submit for the symposium was like a few days away, and we did it, and then we just curated and I had a bunch of submissions. And so it was, yeah, just another way of sharing a platform and bringing other artists in to get to exhibit during this event. So we can go next slide.
That's the last one.
That's awesome. Perfect. So yeah, that's the connecting with community aspect of that.
Thank you for sharing, Jay. I'm just going to transition here, and we're around the same subject of the artist residencies. Gina, you have also participated in artist residencies nationally and internationally, including our artist residency at Rewilding the Body Eclectic and Banff Center for the Arts and Creativity, artist residency at Naples Art Foundation in France, and artist residency at La Messina di San Crisci in Italy. So I'm just I wanted to ask you the same question about those experiences, what they offered you in that time of your art practice and in that time of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've only been to 3 artist residencies. You named all of them. I haven't been quite the artist residency hopper such as Jay. Very impressive. So basically, I went internationally and did 2 artist residencies kind of back to back. And I learned a lot about genuine, like just how to be at an artist residency. I think the whole experience, I mean, my first artist residency was the one in France, and it was about a month long and it was paid. So it was like, I was kind of just thrown into, that's really uncommon for an artist residency to be paid. There's like a few here and there, but most of the time you have to pay and then you get grant funding, as Jay mentioned, or sometimes it'll be free. But a paid artist residency right out the gate was kind of crazy and international. And, I just kind of had no idea what I was doing. And so I don't have any, like, I don't share photos of what I made from that residency. I don't feel like anything physical came from that I can really like be proud of. But I did learn a lot. And I mean, I did get to connect with other artists, actually all Canadian artists, because it was a Canadian exchange residency. So that was a great opportunity. And to be able to just, they also offered us a lot of chances to see art in France. So they took us to different galleries and things like that, and just be able to kind of learn more about French art and the histories there. And then kind of came back from that and then learned a lot and then decided to come back and apply to the Banff residency, which we got, which was fantastic because I don't know, I think it's like the best residency in Canada, at least in my opinion. I don't think there's a better one, but at least maybe there's better ones for ceramics. But getting that one was like, woo, we got it. I ended up applying with a collaborator, Shay Salehi. We applied as a duo and we did our work as a duo. And we ended up also getting Canada Council funding for the project as well, which was fantastic. And yeah, it was about a month, 5 weeks long. And yeah, going in with a specific project in mind. You can pull up the photos too of the project. So it was this piece, which we ended up calling Human in the Loop. My collaborator, she does fantastic metalworking, really intricate, and a lot of mechanical stuff and kinetic work. Her practice is a lot about animal rights and animal activism. She's kind of a diehard vegan, and I love that for her. And of course, mine is with the body. And we sort of came together with this idea of puddling, which is the phenomenon of butterflies and potentially other insects, but mostly butterflies, swarming death and decaying matter and material, and sort of like feeding off of those bacteria and salts. And so we were kind of using puddling as a way of exploring this this idea of like feeding off of someone else's, like feeding off of another being's like energy and value. And so we had this idea of doing this sort of like dichotomy between like human, animal, and technology, and sort of this like a circuit. You can just keep flipping through the images if you want. Yeah, you can see like this, it's so beautiful in Banff. This was our view. We had, this is just like not even the best view in the studio, but it was just gorgeous. Like we were there in the winter and it just looked like we were in a snow globe. It was fantastic. I mean, I got a little distracted working there, I'm not gonna lie. Jay was saying how fantastic it is because there's no distractions. I'm like, I was filled with distractions. I wanted to go out in the mountains. Yeah, you can keep going. Yeah, you can sort of see like we were playing a lot with like circuits and the idea of like looping through and like energies and things like that. So kind of a lot of it was like thinking about how like these would connect to one another, even with the wiring. Yeah, and it was fun. And then we also did like some fun little like side experiments. We were getting a little bit inspired by like the gorgeous nature in Banff. And every day I was kind of I was living it up in Banff. Okay. I was getting my breakfast made for me. And then I would go down and have a sauna. And then I'd go down I'd walk my butt down to the river and I would go for a cold dip every day until the ice completely froze over. And then I'd go back up. And so I was getting really inspired by the water and everything like that. And because of just like the funness of the play on words of puddling, we decided to do these like, big giant silicone puddles and yeah, and do some more exploring with that. You can go to the next one. And yeah, and doing some amazing aluminum pours and sort of seeing how those would kind of puddle as well. And doing some metal work with, you know, different kinds of growths and kind of, yeah, I think like initially we were really set on this sort of visual of the torso and everything. And we kind of got that accomplished. And then the rest of the residency, we had sort of space and time to, and the resources to do a little bit of like playing around. So yeah, it was a great time. Excited for the next one, whenever that may be.
Thank you for sharing about that. And I have to say that many residencies both of you have done, I feel like is a very good amount. And I feel like going internationally is a really big step. Gina, you talking about the work that you created there, you don't feel like you have something physical to show from it, but I'm sure the whole experience has provided you a whole different type of value. So yeah, no comparison on numbers. I think it's
Oh, no. I just meant like,
yeah, you're doing amazing work, and thank you for sharing about those experiences for so we can understand more about what they are and what they can offer.
mhm.
So Gina, we're gonna dive more into some of your work. And I'm just gonna make sure I get some of your slides ready. So in your artist statement, you mention your focus on the relationship between material culture, technology, social media, and their effects on identity. Can you share more about your connection with your art practice and your presence on social media?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So I feel like I have a weird relationship with it. I think we all can sort of resonate with that. I specifically have this story of I graduated in 2021. So we all know what happened around that time. I did my last year, my thesis year in during COVID, like online. And and TikTok was kind of becoming a thing at the time. And so for my winter break during my thesis year, there was no travel, there was no anything. So I decided to do a fun little challenge for myself to be creative. And I decided I was going to make a TikTok, and I gave myself a challenge of every day for that month. I wanted to make a new sculpture, and I wanted to make a video about it, and I wanted to post it on TikTok because I thought it would be a fun way of keeping myself accountable and being creative. And within about a week, I ended up going very viral for this one sculpture. I ended up, I think it's at like 22 million views on the video. And at that time, I just like didn't know what to do with all of that. All of a sudden, my work, which I mean, I was still in university, I was still completing my bachelor's degree in art. Um, I really didn't know what my practice was yet and where it was going. And then all of a sudden I have all of these eyes on me. And it was very strange. You can pull up the first slide if you like.
Sorry, give me a moment.
Oh, you're good.
No.
Okay. So this is a clip of, actually, maybe we should start with the next one. Sorry, I should have flipped them. This is my fault. This is it. This, I don't even care about this. This is what's funny, is that it was a one-off. In with my intention was I had made a face mask months earlier, was too lazy to finish it because I didn't like the idea. But I needed something for the video, so I decided I'm going to show you how to matte silicone down, which is just the process of turning shiny painted silicone into matted silicone, resembling closer to flesh. And then all of a sudden, I was shot into this like sort of weird fame. It ended up on BuzzFeed, it ended up on the New York Times, it ended up kind of in every sort of crevice I could have ever imagined. And it was sort of strange because it was the perfect mix of weird, relevant because it was COVID, and controversial because masks were controversial at the time, still continue to be. And a lot of the reason for its virality, funnily enough, was because I didn't put the mask on my face. And the number one, I got death threats saying, why didn't you put the mask on? I think at the time there was this huge push for everything to be compressed into one video, all of the information. So for the viewers, they felt as though me not putting it on, that was missing the part two, was missing the completion of the thing. And so the number one comment was, put the mask on right now. And so I think part of the reason why it went so viral was like this sort of like this anger of unfinished content. And I'm just a girl who's like, I'm just posting for fun. And I didn't expect that at all. So it was a strange thing to deal with. And I think a lot of my like subsequent work was influenced and still continues to be influenced by this occurrence. And sort of, I think you can keep going to the next slide if you like. Yeah, a lot of what my work sort of became was at the time, immediately after, was trying to produce in order to like feed the system that craves more constantly. In order to stay relevant, you need to keep producing, even if it's good or bad. And I think at the time I was really, you can go to the next one too, actually. I think that one was supposed to be, yeah. So I started making work eventually about this and about this feeling of trends and sort of how it influenced us and how we like went about the world, and sort of this constant feeding of more. You need this, you need this, you need this, and you need to do this. And there's sort of this overwhelming feeling that came with it. And so I started making work about that. And this piece was called Walk, Don't Run. And I started using a lot of like terms of phrases that you would hear a lot on social media. So like walk, don't run would be like, walk, don't run to the store to get the new iPhone or whatever it was, like the next trending thing. And so I sort of took this imagery of the croc. I thought it would be a fun thing as this representation of that, because I think also at the time, like Crocs were trending and it had become a huge meme, and it was part of like the zeitgeist of being on social media and needing the new thing. And the Balenciaga Crocs had just come out, and this idea of like high culture and low culture, and like the clash of those things and how they all kind of came together online. And there was like this huge division, but there was no division on the phone. And we're all kind of after the same thing. So I started making work that was inspired by kind of my experience on social media. You can go to the next one too. And then this one, which is also part of the culture crawl, fed into that sort of narrative. And I think a lot about, so this one, for context, this is my butt. And it was cast from my actual butt. And what's tattooed as a tramp stamp is my TikTok and Instagram handle. And I had titled this work Branded. And again, it was sort of talking about how we're branding ourselves into something completely different for the internet. How like almost our online persona had become more important than like our real persona, our real person. And sort of, yeah, just like feeling so strange about that, and feeling like, yeah, like sort of dissociated from what's real and what's not real. And I think also a lot of it is about like sexualization too, because I felt sexualized on the internet. And yeah, it was kind of more just like, here you go. This is what you want. Here's my ass. I'm gonna tattoo it. And I I don't know. So yeah, so just to explain, like, yeah, I think a lot of my work at the time and still continues to be influenced by the internet and my presence on it as I continue to post and continue to be on the internet while still trying to navigate it on my own terms. And then now I'm sort of like changing it and have a better, more constructive relationship and have taken it on my own terms and posting in my own time and doing my own thing. And so, yeah, just some more examples of new work that I'm doing and have done. And yeah, that's kind of all I have to say.
Thanks, Gina.
Mhm.
And just kind of diving in, you covered a lot there about how that experience affected you, how it affected the direction of your work, either responding directly to what people were asking of you, or what the pressures that you felt, or choosing to go in other directions, or like trying to produce more. Um, do you does it influence like do you feel like it still influences you with development of new ideas, and that tension between like art making, content creating? Does it still have an effect in your practice? And where you are now, it sounds like was that in 2020, that at the end of 2020 that you went viral?
Yeah.
5 years later, how do you navigate like your authenticity and the representation of yourself?
Yeah, I think it took a lot of time. I had to step away from it for a good amount of time. And also just like developing a sense of self as like a 20-some-year-old woman, I think was also crucial. I think it still does affect my work, but in a more pulled back way. I'm sort of looking at it more critically and responding to it rather than reacting to it. I think at the time it was a pure reaction of, oh, I need to capitalize on this because it was such a great opportunity. I mean, I was getting publicized. I was able to make real concrete things happen from that. For example, I was able to we did with a group of students as well, did an artist collective that was purely like online based where we sold artist multiples. So I was able to take sort of the momentum that we had and sort of able to take that and build something from it. And that went on for a couple of years. And we were all able to sort of gain from that, which was great. But at the time, yeah, it was a lot about what can I make to sell? What can I make to gain views? And I think it influenced a lot of what I was doing. And now I think, yeah, I'm looking at it through more of a critical lens and approaching it on my terms. So I think it more affects me like conceptually now. And, but I still acknowledge that it does still affect and help me generate ideas. I think I'm more looking at it as inspiration. Yeah, I'm looking at it as inspiration now, if that makes sense.
And like balancing the pros and cons of that experience and just acknowledging maybe the negative effects that social media can have. Um, how do you encourage a sense of community, a sense of safety and support for artists on social media?
I think it's so crucial to be online nowadays. I think for young and emerging artists, I think I highly doubt there's a way around it. I think it's just a part of society now. If you want relevancy um, and to make money, um, yeah, I don't know how I'm personally fostering it anymore. I think, I did that with the online collective in the past. And I'm not sure that I am. I think I'm personally just like going about my day and going about my practice. Right now, I'm currently working on a collaboration with another artist locally, Claire Anderson, who she's a fantastic glassblower. And we are also, you know, kind of using social media as a tool. Going to be posting about it, making TikTok videos about it, posting our process. She posts her process a lot as well. And just kind of using it as a tool to document our work. I think it's a great way to show process and history and explain kind of what it is you're doing, how you're making it, and make art a little bit more approachable to viewers. And I think for so long, art has been this like mysticized thing, often gatekept, especially processes being gatekept. And it's a great opportunity, at least for me, to show how I make work and my process. And I enjoy sharing that with people. I think because my work is complex, and I find it really helpful for people to be able to see videos of my process. I think visually, when they see it, they're like, oh, okay, I understand how you make this now. And so, yeah, I kind of use it in that way too now.
You've got a couple more slides, Gina, so I don't know if you wanted to return to those or you feel like you've got
Let's do it. I don't know. Let's see what's on there.
it was just the arm and I think a return to some, sorry, I'm just gonna jump over. Here we go. I didn't know if you wanted to speak about this piece.
I think we already did that one. Let's see what the next one is.
Didn't know
Yeah,
if you wanted to go back.
yeah, sorry. I think these are just like clips of me kind of in process. So I think it's just like, yeah, again, just showing how like the, what do you call it? This is such a cheesy, how the sausage is made. Yeah, we're showing you how the sausage is made. Kind of just like, yeah, the arms completely severed. They end up being like reassembled under these clothes. And I did like foam bodies and stuffed them with filling to
Those
avoid.
arms for those forms in the bags.
Yeah, exactly. So to avoid like casting a whole body, because you know silicone's expensive, casting materials are expensive, and you know it's just more work. Um, it's kind of a great example of just like, yeah, showing like I casted all of these parts separately, assembled them, put clothes over them, and then you know sort of sucked them in. So it's just a good example of like showing people kind of how I went about making this like full body without doing all that work. Yeah, there they are. It was 5 bodies. It was a lot. It was about, I did these in about 6 months, which was, I nearly died doing all that, but I didn't. So that's good. And yeah, that's kind of where it all started. Mask girl. I look so young in this photo and so cute.
Thank you for sharing about that experience. It sounds pretty wild. And I'm glad that it has brought a lot of different tools, a lot of different perspectives and offerings for you and your collaborators and in your practice. It's very cool.
Thank you.
And just to ask Jay the same question, just like we did with Gina, Jay, I noticed that you also have a strong following on social media with over 34,000 followers on Instagram. Can you share about your connection between your art making and your presence on social media and how it has changed or how it has influenced you in your art practice? And then maybe I'll expand a little bit on that, which we didn't really plan on, but does it facilitate or does it to support your community building as well and that work?
Yeah, so I have a much different relationship with social media. I dislike that I have to use it, but unfortunately, I think the time that we're in, it's sort of an important tool to get work out there and um, just finding that visibility and staying relevant. But the thing that I really don't like about it is it skews how we see the art because, you know, you go to a museum or a gallery or see art out in the world, and that's such a different experience than the film, someone making a little video of it, and I don't know. I love experiencing art in person and going to spaces where I can see the texture and see like this how the art is it just exists in space. Uh, but yeah, so for me, it's an unfortunate tool that I have to use. But I had when my I had a video go viral and it was my vases. And so the thing that I had a little frustrated about with the following on social media is so I'm a figurative artist. I love doing figures. That's where my concepts are. It's so much more well thought out, and not that my other work isn't well thought out, but like that's where my brain is I think in figurative work. But the pottery, the vases that went viral are the thing that I do for money. Yes, they have some concept to them, but mostly I need to pay bills. And that one vase went viral, and so I started making a bunch of vases. And most of my followers are there for the vases, and so I can see I get so much more positive reinforcement whenever I post a vase compared to when I post my figurative work. But the figurative work is what the grants will fund, that's what the museums and the galleries will show, and that's where there's a lot more conversation about it. Whereas to me, the vases are beautiful and I love making them and they have concept to them, but that's not my focus and that's not what I want to be doing. And so it's skewing how the world is seeing my work, where people want me to talk more about the vases. And I'm like, yeah, sure, the vases, but like let's talk about the figurative stuff because like this is why I'm here. It's for those things. So so yeah, but then the positives of having a big following, like you're saying, the sense of community is I do have a wider reach. And so when I do make those posts, like, yes, the vases get more attention, but I can access more. Oh, yeah, we can go to the photos. So these are some of the recent vases I made during that Sontula residency. And so whenever I post things like, doing a call, the trans exhibition that I curated, I was able to reach more people. Like it was Vancouver trans and gender diverse people, so it was a very small specific set of people, but I was able to reach more people. And actually, yeah, that following only happened while I was in Baltimore, which was last year, or I guess a year and a half ago at this point. We can go to the next slide. You can, yeah, just go through these leads. These are just a few vases that I've made. And so I'm continuing the similar shape because that's what people are attracted to, and that's what has been selling and helping me fund. I like to say my vases fund my figurative work because the figurative work doesn't sell as much. I think because uh, it confronts you in a way that a traditional vessel won't. Like a figurative work, you think like, who is that person? What is that person's experiences? You have a lot more questions about it, which is what I find interesting. But then the vases don't necessarily confront you with those questions. They're a lot more easy to live with and sellable, which is why I have that following. And so, yeah, to me, social media skews artists' work in that way because you see absolutely incredible artists online who maybe have like a couple thousand followers because they haven't gotten into the videos of making their process or whatever, which are interesting to see, but I'm more interested in the physical artwork. But yeah, so it's a complicated relationship because now like I feel like I should be making the work that has a lot more positive reinforcement on the internet, but I don't care about it as much. I mean, I do care about it, but I just want to make the figurative stuff. Yeah.
Thank you. I find it so interesting that I feel like you both kind of have the complicated relationship with the social media side of the arts community and the viewership. And then talking about the artist residencies, which are all about being in person, whether it's being in isolation and showing up for yourself, or it's being in this huge community within, a different place, kind of transported. But even within that, you talked about like sometimes you come out with work that feel like you can't show, or sometimes you come out with work that you could only have made in that one place because of who showed up for you and what they taught you. It sounds like they're all of these, I guess they're very human. Is maybe the roundabout way of just blanketing them, but in all of these different forms of connection, you're navigating your practice with all like the ebb and flow. So I really appreciate you sharing all of these different experiences that you've had, both Gina and Jay. Thank you so much for showing up, coming to this talk, bringing everything that you've learned, bringing everything that you know, and bringing everything that, you know, for who you both are. And being a part of the crawl. Both of you are in the preview exhibit, so you're participating in the calls and the programming for the crawl, and so yeah, I appreciate that you know, despite being in different places around the world at different times of your practice, that your time in Vancouver, you've really dove in and you're in this community and in this event, and I think it's great, and I appreciate, you know, you jumping into the deep end with us. So yeah, thank you. And I'm just gonna offer for the attendees, if anyone has any questions, don't have anything in the chat, but if you wanted to ask anything, feel free to do that now. And in case anyone's thinking, this was our last artist talk as part of the Talking Art series. So each year we have about 3 of these, and this is the last. You will be able to find all of these talks on YouTube. And in case anyone wants to revisit or see the other ones that may have been missed, they will all be on the Culture Crawl's website on YouTube. Just Kat jumped in, said big appreciation for everything you both shared. So thank you. Thanks, Kat. And thank you everyone for attending and joining us for this. Appreciate you taking the time out of your evening and coming and participating in this community, in this space. So we invite everyone to visit the artists in their studios November 20th to 23rd at the Culture Crawl. Be sure to check out everyone's work. You can find Jay and Gina and their artist profiles, including all of the other Culture Crawl artists at culturecrawl.ca/artists. And I hope everyone has a wonderful crawl. Thank you everyone for being here.
Thank you so much.